Well, shove a hot dog in my mouth and call me Phil Kessel. This year's playoffs has had its fair share of historical moments, hasn't it? And we've only just finished the first round. From the President's Trophy winners being swept by a team who had never previously won a playoff series, both number one seeds being eliminated with just a single win between them, to home ice advantage meaning literally nothing, as each division winner got knocked out in the first 7 games of the postseason, it's been one hell of a rollercoaster. With different storylines and narratives sprouting up like weeds in an unkept garden, let's recap how the first round went down.
No! God, please, no!
They tied the NHL record for most wins in a regular season, had superstar players in every position that were handcrafted by the organisation, and looked poised to finally go all the way and lift the cup for the first time since 2004, but along came an 8th-seeded Columbus team who wouldn't go down without a fight. After a 3-0 lead slipped through their fingers in Game 1, the Tampa Bay Lightning were unable to find their way back into the running as they were swept in the first round, much to the dismay of NHL bracket challenges everywhere. A team that won 62 games this season couldn't win a single playoff game. Against Columbus. I guess that's what happens when you underestimate your opponents and there is no sense of panic or responsibility when your backs are against the wall. It doesn't help when your top scorer gets suspended for a game either, but I doubt him being there would have made much of a difference. An Art Ross trophy doesn't really mean much if you can't score when it matters most, you know? The Lightning seemed to suffer from a lack of intensity the entire series, but considering they hadn't played a meaningful hockey game since the new year, it kinda makes sense. Despite the injuries and fluctuating production from players, the team always seemed to find a way to win. They simply just fell asleep at the wheel and didn't see the iceberg dead ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
On the flip side, a team that has only made the playoffs 5 times in their 18-year existence achieved the improbable. They eliminated the best team in the NHL and one of the best regular season teams in NHL history in the first round, and in convincing fashion too. After several expletive-riddled locker room screaming sessions from everyone's favourite head coach John Tortorella, the Blue Jackets went to war and conquered their foes. Sergei Bobrovsky allowed just 8 goals in the 4-game series, whilst trade deadline acquisition Matt Duchene piled up the points for his new team. Once thought to be dangerously close to losing his job after a whole host of risky black market deals at the trade deadline, Jarmo Kekalainen now looks like a genius. Whatever happens to this team in the following weeks is almost irrelevant. The Blue Jackets have shaken off their playoff woes and are having the best season in their franchise's history. Everything that happens now is just a bonus.
I did my job, I do it again.
The definition of insanity is when you do the same thing over and over again, but expect a different result. Well, the Boston Bruins must be the happiest and most insane team in the sporting world. We all knew that a Boston-Toronto series would go the distance, not just because of the team's recent playoff history, but because of how much these two teams and their fan bases feed off the shattered dreams and salty tears of the other. Though they had to work hard in order to force a Game 7, it was familiar territory for the Bruins, as they once again drove the dagger into the heart of their greatest rival. Like Thanos snapping his fingers, the Bruins fulfilled their purpose by beating the Leafs in 7. Toronto are now on the golf course as Boston move on to the next round, and everything in the world is pure once more. Tuukka Rask came up clutch late in the series, allowing just 5 goals in the last 3 games, compared to the 12 he allowed in the first 4. The first line of Bergeron, Pasternak and Marchand was putting points on the board consistently, and their big trade deadline acquisition in Charlie Coyle was playing like a second-line centre should. Just another day at the playoff office for the big bad Bruins.
Stop! He's already dead!
For their Canadian opponents though, sadness filled the surrounding streets of the Scotiabank Arena for yet another season. Sorry, Leafs fans, John Tavares and his childhood love of your franchise wasn't enough to rewrite the history you are sick to death of witnessing year after year. Frederik Andersen was once again forced to fend for himself and faced the brunt of the Bruins' attack alone as his defensive corps stood idly by, which resulted in the clearly overworked goaltender coughing up 9 goals in just the last 2 games of the series. Nazem Kadri going all UFC and trying to rip Jake DeBrusk's head off didn't exactly help matters either. Though Kadri seems to have made a bit of a habit of watching the game from the press box when his team needs him most, since he has been suspended for at least 3 games in 3 of the past 4 postseasons. Might I suggest sending Kadri elsewhere during the month of April in exchange for a bag of pucks maybe? At least the pucks will still be on the ice by game 3.
I am leaving, and you can't stop me. I'm packing my bags.
Okay, Capitals, party's over. Your ownership of the cup has officially ended, and you may now return to your usual early exits and playoff choking. When a team that hasn't even sniffed the playoffs in a decade takes you to a 7th game, you know that even the hockey gods have had enough of your success. With most of the team's cup-winning core still on the roster, and the newfound experience of what it takes to win it all, you would think that the Washington Capitals would have had this series locked down. But alas, they took their foot off the accelerator and let the storm surge blow them out of the building and onto the golf course. Let's just hope Ovechkin doesn't get upset with any of the caddies this year. He knows how to deal with teenagers.
Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
For their wildcard opponents, this day has been a long time coming. The bunch of jerks are back in the postseason. Rod Brindamore and his merry band of playoff virgins are coming for the cup. Better still is that they came from behind in the series to knock out the defending Stanley Cup champions. Don Cherry must be shitting his pants right now if he doesn't already due to old age. A slow start in the series saw the Hurricanes go down 2-0, but once the series moved to Riley and the team found their footing, the rest was history. Strong performances from Peter Mrazek, Jacob Slavin, Warren Foegele and Mr. Game 7 saw Carolina win every single game on their home ice and also squeak out a double OT victory at the Verizon Center thanks to a Brock McGinn deflection. The Storm Surge moves on to the second round of the playoffs for the first time since 2009, where anything is possible. Just goes to show you what good coaching and a clear identity can do for a team. Hate on them all you want, hockey fans. They're moving on to bigger and better things. What a time to be a Hurricanes fan.
I just wanted to say thanks. I'm glad you came along.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen. What was once their favourite time of year to take Lord Stanley's Cup for a ride has now become a bitter reminder of lost loves and better days. Though still considered to be cup contenders by many, thanks to their championship core of yesteryear still playing in the black and gold, the Pittsburgh Penguins' star-studded lineup seemingly forgot how to score. With just 6 goals in 4 games and their defense unable to hold up their end of the bargain, the Penguins couldn't match what was thrown at them and they swiftly bowed out of the race. Don't worry though, Jim Rutherford will do everything he can to keep this team in playoff limbo until his inevitable departure. After all, Penguins, you've had it too good for too long.
Wait a minute. Who are you?
For their victorious opponents, who knew that hiring a cup-winning head coach and the departure of your best player would result in your franchise's best season for nearly 25 years? Long gone are the days of the Islanders dynasty in the 80s, and with John Tavares' exit from Brooklyn crushing the hearts of Islanders fans everywhere, it really did seem like this team was going to hit rock bottom before it got better. Then along came Lou Lamoriello and Barry Trotz to pick this homeless franchise off its feet, give it a shower, brush its teeth, and get it back to the glory days. Throw in a once struggling goaltender in Robin Lehner playing lights out hockey, the top 6 putting the puck in the net on a nightly basis, and the defensive core holding up their end of the bargain, and you have a roster capable of sweeping a team that has won 2 of the last 3 championships. Not bad for a team that many expected to be in the draft lottery this year.
But they are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
Having the best defense in the league on paper doesn't get you anywhere when you can't beat a wildcard team, Predators. It's a good thing you're the home of country music, because you're going to need a few songs about failed relationships and booze to get you through this upset. Your hard-nosed, no-nonsense style of hockey was seemingly perfect for the playoffs. Throw in your trade deadline acquisitions of Wayne Simmons and Brian Boyle, as well as the return of Cody McLeod, and you are basically broadcasting to the rest of the league that you will beat them into submission if you don't get your hands on the cup. Too bad you fell at the first hurdle to a team that limped to the starting gate. Allowing 12 goals in the last 3 games of the series proves that you simply didn't know how to handle your opponent. Granted, the Stars have an arsenal of scoring machines, but your defense is paid a large chunk of your salary cap to stop them. They didn't, and once again you are proven to be nothing more than a good team in theory, but mediocre in execution. You should have beaten Pittsburgh in the finals when you had the chance. It's been nothing but downhill since. On the other side of the coin, their 2 best players were called out by the team's owner for failing to produce down the stretch, and the team struggled to hold a playoff berth for most of the season, but congratulations, Dallas Stars, you're moving on to the second round. A team that has been void of consistent goaltending for many years has finally found their guy in Ben Bishop, who played his best hockey of the series when it mattered most. Couple that with their first line of Ben, Sagan and Radulov firing on all cylinders, and you've got yourself a winning formula against one of the toughest teams in the West. The Stars came out swinging and didn't stop until their opponents were broken, beaten and scarred on the ground. Now, if you could win another 4 games and give the Rangers your first round pick, that would be great.
Loser! You're a loser! Are you feeling sorry for yourself? Well, you should be, because you are dirt!
The Jets looked like a legitimate playoff threat, ready to march to their first finals appearance and be the first Canadian team to lift the Stanley Cup in the 21st century, but along came Jordan Binnington to crush the dreams of an entire city. Maybe next time, take some Viagra for that playoff dysfunction, eh, Winnipeg? Though the series was admittedly closer than most on the scoresheet, with 5 of the 6 games being decided by a single goal, like the bridesmaid never picked to be the bride, the Jets were nearly always on the losing end. You may have had the most convincing win of the series in Game 3 and stolen Game 4 in overtime, but taking 6 shots in the first 2 periods of the game when facing elimination is just downright embarrassing. No matter how good the Blues defense was, you should have done better. At least your fans got to wear white again for a few games. It's like they wanted you to surrender.
Oh my God! Wow!
For the victors of this series, they were once sat at the bottom of the league standings, and it looked like their season was over. But a 25-year-old goaltender in the AHL brought the team back from the depths of hockey hell and gave them a new lease at life. So good was their revival that they are now one of the final 8 teams remaining in the postseason. As the season went on, the St. Louis Blues only seemed to get better. Their big off-season acquisitions of O'Reilly, Bozak and Maroon finally got to grips with the system of play. The goaltending became more stable once Jake Allen was told to sit on the bench more nights than not, and the defense finally remembered how to keep the puck out of their net. It helps when the Western Conference had performance anxiety all season long, but give credit where credit is due. The Blues clawed their way back into the running and are surpassing all expectations. Maybe Binnington goes full-on Cam Ward and leads the Blues to their first Stanley Cup. Whilst it's still far too early to tell, don't sleep on St. Louis. Everyone else did, and look where they are now.
Oh Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Arguably the biggest surprise during the regular season, The Calgary Flames ended up keeping that moniker during the playoffs, but for all the wrong reasons. There's no other way to put it. Calgary bottled it. Though they got off to a great start with a shutout victory in Game 1, Calgary failed to keep the momentum going for the rest of the series. Their first line of Monahan, Gaudreau and Lindholm lost all sense of how to score goals, and their defense couldn't stop Colorado's firepower, which resulted in a swift exit from the proceedings via the back door. When all your top players decide to take the series off, and your biggest question mark in Mike Smith is one of the only players to actually turn up, you know you're screwed. Enjoy that division champion banner, Calgary. At least you were better than Tampa.
Come with me if you want to live.
For their opponents, considered to be a one-line team for most of the year, the Avalanche had their fair share of struggles to even get to the postseason. But with the 4th overall pick in their pocket and the addition of highly touted college defenseman Cale Makar, Colorado are moving on. Though their first line of McKinnon, Landeskog and Rantanen continued to earn its hefty paycheck, Colorado's bottom 6 decided to get in on the goal-scoring action too, as the Avalanche scored 14 goals in the final 3 games of the series. Couple that with clutch goaltending and a defense that can both put points on the board and give their goalie some help in front of the net, and the Avalanche appear to be playing the strongest they've played all season long. You stole the sacred fire from the Flames and are getting hot at the right time, Colorado, but you'll need to rely on your depth showing up a lot more if you want to lift the cup when June rolls around.
You make me sick, you big baby!
Last year's Wonder Team looked to show that their historic first season in the league wasn't a fluke by blowing a 3-1 series lead. Yes, I know, the Eakin hit shouldn't have been a game misconduct, but you should never have been in that position in the first place. You had 3 different chances to lock this series up and move on, but you decided to give the Sharks an inch, so they took a mile and sent you to the golf course for the summer. Trade deadline acquisition Mark Stone helped turn the second line of Max Pacioretty and Paul Stastny into a highly effective scoring line, but the rest of the team were unable to hold down the fort. The first line couldn't make a big enough dent. The defense, though able to put up points, allowed 12 goals in the final 3 games, and Marc-Andre Fleury returned to his usual playoff choking ways after being the catalyst and poster boy for your team last year. You can blame the refs for costing you the series all you want, but face it, Vegas, you choked. Get used to it. The other teams in the league have.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
For the series winners, it's kind of ironic that it took the blood of their captain to pour all over the ice for the Sharks to come to life. There's no doubt that their top players had a field day on the score sheet towards the end of the series, but the biggest surprise was Martin Jones. The goaltender had a tough year on the stat sheet and gave up 16 goals in the Golden Knights' 3 wins of the series, but he stood on his head to keep his team in the running and pull a Game 7 by allowing just 3 goals in Games 5 and 6. You got lucky with the Eakin penalty, but you made it work for you by scoring 4 goals in 5 minutes. And now, the San Jose Sharks are once again heading to the second round. If Jones can play like he did in Games 5 and 6, the Sharks have all the pieces they need to make another finals appearance. But it's easier said than done. You've been there once, don't make the same mistakes again. And besides, Jumbo Joe hasn't got many years left on him, so try and win it for him, yeah? He deserves it. I'm not even gonna try to predict what happens from here on out, as this year's playoffs has already shattered all expectations. But what I do know is that the coming weeks will see some great hockey. With 3 of the last 8 teams having never won the Stanley Cup, perhaps we shall see history be made before our very eyes. It wouldn't be the first time this postseason, that's for sure. And with that, I'm going to end today's video. What do you think about the first round of the 2019 NHL playoffs? Also, what do you think about this style of video and this style of commentary? Let me know in the comments below, I would love to hear what you guys think. But thank you very much for watching, guys, I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. A big thank you to Andy, Chris Gadsby, Dave, David, Kalesbro, Martin Tolness, Matt DeWild, Max Artis, and Nat Marlowe, as well as a huge thank you to Cam Montgomery and Ryan Todd for helping support this video via Patreon. If you too want to help support the channel a little bit further and get a shout out at the end of every future video, make sure you head over to patreon.com/oddmanrush and become a patron today.